We're almost halfway through the WNBA season, and the Golden State Valkyries continue to surprise the league. Who's been their best defender, their most improved player, and their team MVP? Find out as Locked On Women's Basketball Valkyries Report starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball's Valkyrie Report, a special edition show on the Golden State Valkyries, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of Locked On Women's Basketball Valkyries Report, a specialty podcast all about the Golden State Valkyries. I am Matthew Walter, one of your hosts of Locked On Women's Basketball Valkyries Report, as well as a beat reporter over at The Next covering the Valkyries. On today's episode, I am joined by the amazing Marisa Ingemi of the San Francisco Chronicle to talk about the Valkyries' recent 4-game road swing, as well as hand out some mid-season superlatives to the expansion franchise. Marisa, before we get into our superlatives, I want to start with some news from the Valkyries that occurred about 24 hours ago. Stephanie Talbot, one of the guards they added in the expansion draft from the Los Angeles Sparks, was waived by the Valkyries. Why was this move made, and what does this signal about the possibility of Ileana Rupert joining the Golden State Valkyries?
Yeah, the plan's been for Rupert to join the team after Eurobasket, and then she actually got married, so she was away for a little bit longer, but she's supposed to join the team right before they head to Seattle, and then she'll be on the roster and presumably playing in that 5-game road trip after the All-Star break. But they had to make room for her somehow. I think a lot of people assume Caitlin Chen would be gone. She stayed instead of Julie Van Loo following Eurobasket, but I think people kind of assumed Chen would be the one out, if not her, Letitia Amy here. But Steph Talbot's been like pretty clearly out of the rotation for quite a bit. She didn't play at all in Las Vegas or in Indianapolis. She was really struggling. They had started her a few times, I think mostly for size. That's kind of all she was really bringing at that point. They used her at a 5 when they were really undersized, but she wasn't shooting. She came in as a 3-point shooter. That's what they really wanted out of her. And that shot just never got going after she got hurt in training camp. So I wasn't terribly surprised. I didn't know if they would actually do it. Like, it seemed like that was the move to make, to get your player who's not in your rotation off the team to bring in Rupert. Chen has played a lot of minutes lately, and me here, they need that size. So I think it was the right move for them to make. And honestly, credit to them for having the guts to do that.
Yeah, and to your point, Stephanie Talbot shooting a career low 25% from 3. You know, she is known as a 3-point shooter. That's probably her best skill. And I remember when we were talking to her, one of the practices, she said, you know, I'm not shooting well. I know this. I'm very honest with myself. And she had to find a way to get back there, but clearly it wasn't enough. And Rupert, who's known as another bigger guard, or, you know, smaller forward, bigger guard that shoots the 3 ball, it kind of made sense for the Valkyries when they wanted to bring her in, that you had to get rid of somebody. And like you said, Talbot had kind of fallen out of the rotation. Letitia Meher is bringing them good minutes. Caitlin Chen has added excellent minutes. And so I think, unfortunately, that's the cost of doing business in the WNBA these days. Valkyries coming off a 4-game road trip. They went 1-3. Their most recent game, before we just talk about the road trip as a whole, they lose to the Las Vegas Aces on Saturday, 104-102. I think I want to start with, and Natalie Nakaste said this at halftime on CBS, the defense was bad. It was a very bad defense. I mean, you give 104 points in any game, it's not a good performance. And I think you look at it, you know, the last time they played the Aces, A'ja Wilson was not very good. This time, 34 points on 12 of 16 shooting. It's hard to be any better than that for the reigning MVP. What did the Valkyries do defensively that just wasn't working?
Yeah, I think part of it was like true fatigue. They've had kind of a short rotation, people in and out, people coming back from Eurobasket too. And I think that road trip really did wear them out. So that's part of it. Natalie talked a lot about how they weren't physical enough on A'ja and they allowed her too many touches. It was a different Aces starting lineup than we saw when Las Vegas was at Chase Center on June 7th. Nalissa Smith was starting there alongside A'ja instead of Kiera Stokes. So just the fact that you had more of an offensive threat there means you have to cover a little bit differently. And the other thing is, when the Aces played at Chase Center, they weren't shooting at all. Like, the zone defense completely befuddled them. They weren't able to shoot the ball. And in this game, Jewel Lloyd was able to score a little bit. Jackie Young got 30 points. So it was just a different kind of look they were seeing. The defense has been pretty solid all year, but they have shown some holes in the paint at times. They've had the best paint defense in the league for most of the season, but we saw in Atlanta, they really struggled against Brianna Jones and Brittany Griner. There have been times when teams are able to just kind of pull Temi Fagbenle, the starting center, out of the paint and they don't really have another rim protector, especially when Monique Billings isn't on the floor. And I think Atlanta almost kind of gave a blueprint for Las Vegas in some ways as well. So I think it's an adjustment they have to make. They've done a pretty good job adjusting all season though, so I'm pretty confident they'll be able to do it, especially bringing in Rupert, who's kind of like a stretch five. She can play in the paint like Temi, like Monique Billings. Ami here's done a pretty good job when she's gotten the minutes. So I view it more as a blip on the radar than anything else, but it is something they can learn from.
Yeah, and to your point too, Las Vegas shot 35 free throws. Between Jackie Young and Asia Wilson, they shot 23 of them. And if you consider Fagbenle and Salon, the front court of the Valkyries, they had 10 fouls. So that was a big problem. You got to be able to protect the paint without fouling. That's incredibly important. And as much as the Valkyries struggled defensively, I think we could both admit this might be their best offensive game of the year. They shot over 50%, almost 40% from three. They had 6 players in double figures, if I'm not mistaken, including Janelle Salon and Tiffany Hayes, both with 16 points, Cecilia Zandalicini with 12 off the bench. So that's a positive for them. What did you see offensively and how can they grow from that? Because we know some of the issues for the Valkyries have been that half-court offense can get stagnant at times with the three-point shooting. If it doesn't go for them some nights, it's going to cost them games.
It was like the most un-Valkyries game they've ever played. They were shooting and they were scoring and they couldn't stop anyone. It was like kind of bizarre. But I think having Janelle back in the starting rotation makes a difference because that's just someone else that teams need to guard and take seriously as someone who can shoot from all 3 levels, right? She can drive to the hoop. She's probably their best mid-range shooter, and she can shoot from 3. So that kind of changes their dynamic when she's on and she scored 2 early baskets. I think Chechi coming off the bench is huge for them. She's only played like 6 games, I think, because she was hurt early on and then went to Eurobasket. But I mean, she's a pretty sizey wing and she's the best 3-point shooter on the team statistically. If you go back to last season, she was the 6th best 3-point shooter in the league while she played for Minnesota. So I think just having that kind of threat coming off your bench really changes your offensive dynamic. Teams have to guard differently. So I think just those two being present and being in the rotation were a significant difference for the offense. I think the other part was just like the kind of style of the game. I don't think the Valkyries are going to be a 40% 3-point shooting team all year. I view that as a little more of a blip on the radar too. But their offense did get significantly better in the road trip. 3 of their best 8 shooting games of the season came on that road trip. They were all losses, sure enough. Kind of bizarre there, but the shooting has been getting a little bit better. Veronica Burton's really kind of found her shot from 3 after shooting 25%. In the previous 9 games before that road trip, and then she kind of got on a roll. So I think we kind of saw the potential of what a complete Valkyries offense can look like when they have everyone kind of in their role.
Yeah, and I think talking to your point about Janelle Salon, you can tell it took her a couple of games from Eurobasket to just get back in a rhythm. She wasn't looking right, very hesitant the first couple of games, and then now we're into a couple of games in. She's back in the starting lineup, and she looked a lot better on Saturday against the Aces. Just a quick talk about that road trip as a whole. They go 1-3. They play basically all playoff teams or playoff caliber teams. They lose by 11 to Minnesota. They blow a 4th quarter lead to Atlanta, and then they lose the close game to Las Vegas. They beat Indiana on a camp game by 19 points. To me, the takeaway of this road trip is, the thing that's going to plague the Valkyries all year, they have to win on the road. They have to be able to find ways to get a split, just to go 500 on the road, not to be a winning team on the road, because they're going to win games at home with their huge home court advantage. But right now, they need to find ways to be able to win on the road consistently.
Yeah, and they have to close out games too. That's kind of been haunting them all year. They really struggled with it, like in that first road trip at New York and Phoenix. And then they got a little bit better at it, mostly at home, to your point. But then that Atlanta game just kind of had shades of a team that's turning the ball over late. They had 6 points and 7 turnovers in the last 5 minutes of that game. You're not going to win games that way. They just have to find a way to close those games out. I don't know if it's fatigue. I don't know if it's like they don't have the hype of the Chase Center crowd or what, but that's something they have to solve, which I don't think is like too unique for an expansion team. It was pretty remarkable that they've kind of been able to find a way to solve that at times. And I think it says a lot about them that we expect them to. Like, this easily could be a conversation of like, well, it's an expansion team. What are you going to do? But the fact that they kind of have that, we can see they have the ability to solve some of this stuff. And that's kind of creating these expectations for them, because I think we all genuinely believe like these are games they can win.
Gotcha. And I agree. And I think again, it's going to be a big factor down the road to this. If they want to make the playoffs, how do they perform on the road in the second half of the season? When we come back, we'll talk about our midseason superlatives. Who's been a team MVP, best defender, most improved. We'll be talking about that in our next segment. But first, let's be honest, meal planning and grocery shopping can be overwhelming. Between busy schedules, picky eaters, and trying to eat healthy, it's a lot. That's why I love Hungry Root. They take the stress out of planning by filling your cart for you with personalized groceries and meal options based on what you like and need. Hungry Root uses their smart cart technology to recommend groceries, recipes, and even supplements tailored to your preferences. Whether you're dairy-free, gluten-free, focused on gut health, or just trying to eat better, Hungry Root's got you covered. It's been a big help in sticking to my nutrition goals without giving up flavor or convenience. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. Welcome back to Locked On Women's Basketball Valkyrie Report. I am Matthew Walter, joined by the great Marisa Ingemi from the San Francisco Chronicle. And now we're going to get into our midseason superlatives. And I think we're going to save the MVP for the end. I always think save the best for last. So we'll start with the Rookie of the Year. And I think this is a pretty easy 2, maybe 3-horse race. But Marisa, who is your Valkyries Rookie of the Year midway through their inaugural season?
It's kind of weird because she's missed some games, but Janelle Salon, I think, has just been so impressive. She seems so WNBA ready from day one. She jumped in, she won a championship in Italy, and then was at shoot around like less than 48 hours later, and she has just seemed equipped for this level. So, I mean, Carla Late's showing some flashes as well from the bench, but I just see Janelle as someone who could be the future of this team.
Yeah, and I would agree with you again. For someone to come over having never played in the WNBA at, what is she, 22 years old, and average 9.5 points, 4 rebounds, shoot 33% from 3 with her very line drive shot, I think would be the best way to describe it. She's been outstanding. And you said Carly, but my honorable mention has been Caitlin Chen. Since she came over during the Eurobasket time, she's been so impressive for someone that was a 3rd-round pick. She's hit big shots. She's been a great defender. She's done some of those little things. And Carla Late has had, the back injury. She's been not shooting it very well recently. And I think Caitlin Chen has kind of surpassed her, not only in the rotation, but just as the Valkyries' second best rookie. But I think you're right. It's the Rookie of the Year for the Valkyries, and someone who could be an all-rookie team performer for the whole WNBA if she continues to get better now that she's post Eurobasket time. Janelle Salon has a real shot to continue to impress across the league, and obviously has impressed for the Valkyries. All right, Defensive Player of the Year. I'll go first on this one. I'm going to go with Temi Fagbenle, and we talked about it in our first segment. The defense for the Valkyries has been paint protection from the start, and it goes and stops with Temi Fagbenle. And you saw it when the Valkyries she was missing for Eurobasket, how much they missed having her in the starting lineup because of her length, her activity, and her athleticism. She protects the rim really well. She rebounds really well. And she's just a key part of that Valkyries defensive front, protecting things from sort of breaking down on the back end. And for a team that's an expansion team that we were unsure on the size coming into the year, right? We didn't know how big they were going to be. Temi Fagbenle has probably been their most important and best defender at the rim, and someone who, maybe without missing for Eurobasket might be getting a little more recognition around the league for the job she's done protecting the basket.
That's a great pick. I'll go with Kayla Thornton just because the assignment she's getting, she's like guarding the top players on teams a lot of the time. And also like her usage is so high. She's playing around 30 minutes per game. She's leading the team in scoring, but still getting back on defense, creating steals, creating transition. She's playing the most she's ever played. And I don't feel like her defense has lost a step. The fact that she's been so reliable on both ends of the floor, I think has been pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and I think an honorable mention for me, and someone who I think is going to go into my next category, Veronica Burton has done a phenomenal job. She's sort of the head of the snake defensively. You talk about Kayla Thornton, she takes the best wing, sometimes the best post, but Veronica usually has to guard that best guard every night and also then be the point guard. And I think she's done a great job, and someone who came out of college as a defensive stopper, and I think she continues to show that night in and night out. All right, now we go to most improved. Who's your most improved Valkyrie from last year to this year?
It's going to be Veronica Burton. And for a while, I think I was going to get away from her and go with Kayla Thornton because Veronica had a rough 9-game stretch there. But boy, she solved whatever was going on with her shot. She went 5 for 6 in Atlanta. And she was 8 for her last 10 at one point going into Vegas. She hit another big 3-pointer there. It's been really impressive to see her offensive progress. Like, we knew she was a good defender. We knew that she could kind of continue to do that even in a starting role. But like, going into this season, I never would have predicted her as a starting point guard. I was surprised in preseason when they had her in that spot. And very quickly, you could see how she fit into Natalie's vision. But I just wasn't sure the offense was going to be there. And it consistently has been. She's been facilitating the ball very well. She has a crazy assist to turnover ratio. It's like 3.13 or something. Just really impressive stuff. I think Veronica could be considered one of the most improved players in the entire league.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for that Veronica Burton triple-double game. Like, it has to be coming.
We're so close.
She's so close a couple of times. She has gotten the double-double with assists. She rebounds the ball really well. And you're right. You're talking about it. The shooting has come around for her on such a high degree over the last couple of games, right? We saw the slump. She had some bad games, but she has those moments, right? She's had 2 20-plus games. I think what was in that Atlanta game, she had 20 points, 8 plus rebounds, 6 plus assists, and 5 made threes, and only 20 other times that happened in a WNBA game. And this was someone who, I'm trying to remember, what was she averaging last year in Connecticut? It was like 4 points a game, right? She went from 3 points a game. She went from 3 points a game to 11 points a game. And I think, the whole Valkyries team, it's hard to sort of gauge, like, how do you give them a most improved award? Because all of them are getting super expanded roles, right? Kayla Thornton, Veronica Burton, they're playing way more minutes. Like, when she's going from 13 minutes a game to almost 30, like, it's a huge jump. So how do you go from most improved? But again, the scoring's gone up. The 3-point shooting is a much higher volume, and the percentage has stayed the same as last year. Her regular shooting is about the same as last year. Everything's gone up, and it's only the assists. I think 5.4 assists a game and 1.2 steals. Just, she's been so good. That was my pick for my choice, but my honorable mention is Kate Martin off the bench. And Kate Martin has come in off the bench and had some big games. She had a 20-point game off the bench the other day. She hits, I think you and I have a running joke. It's the second half. Where's the Kate Martin 5-minute stretch of like 10 points?
Yeah, the Kate Martin part of the game.
Every game she hits like 2 threes in the second half. She makes a layup, and then boom, we're looking at, her having 10 points off the bench. And we're like, oh, there's the Kate Martin 5-minute spurt. And the usage is so much more. Like, she's doing so many different things than she was in Las Vegas. I wrote a story about this last week, but using ball screens a lot more, being aggressive in transition. She goes into people. She's a lot more physical than she was in Las Vegas last year. And you can just see the work and the growth that she has put in. And again, you could say that about a lot of these Valkyries players, but for her to be coming off the bench, starting some games, starting some second halves, like, she's going to do whatever she needs to help the team win. And it's only created more success for them as a group, and you can see her numbers jump as well.
And I've talked to Kate a lot this year about like her increased physicality. That was very intentional in the offseason. She wanted to be someone who could drive to the hoop a lot more and use those ball screens a little bit more, and not just be, I think like 70% of her shots last season came from 3, and it's down to like 50% this year, just because she's more reliable in more parts of the floor. And I think that's a great player to highlight here.
Yeah. And again, like, I think I looked at it, she more than doubled or tripled the amount of layups she's taken this year. Like, last year, she wasn't getting to the rim, and now she's, especially in transition, you can see her mindset is go to the basket, score at the rim, which has really helped the Valkyries, because that's where they can get some of those easy looks when that offense stagnates in the half court, is getting out in transition.
Yep.
All right. Now the big one, team MVP. I'll throw this one. This is my turn. So I'm going to go with probably the obvious pick, and that's Kayla Thornton. I mean, the first All-Star ever for this expansion franchise. She has had so many big games. She has had big rebounding games, big scoring games. She's had big clutch moments when the Valkyries have needed her. I think back to, it was the Washington game, like their first win of the year. She hit a couple of big threes in a game where the team couldn't make a 3-pointer down the stretch. Yep. I think either she got fouled on one, or she had an and 1 3. And it just, those moments that she's been able to step up and be a veteran, and someone who, she didn't play at a big college. She didn't have a big name coming into the WNBA. Undrafted out of Texas El Paso, but has worked her way into being a star for this franchise. I mean, she's got the right, everybody loves her. Her personality is great. She's got the right leadership motivation. And I think it's pretty obvious she's been this team's MVP and why she deserved to be an all-star this year.
Yeah, I mean, KT is the answer. She's the MVP of the team. If we had to go for a secondary one, I would go with Burton just because they ask so much from her, and I just can't imagine this team functioning without her defensively or offensively. But when you look at like how the Valkyries have won games this year, KT, if you had to pick a singular reason, it's her. She's single-handedly had these clutch shots. Even like I think it was the game. I'm trying to remember. I think it was maybe in Phoenix where it was LA. I think it was the May 23rd game where she had was 0 for 7 from 3 and she was doing nothing. And they went to overtime and then she hit the game winning 3 late. Like they can just rely on her in those spots. For an expansion team, you need that kind of anchor. And I think she's provided that.
Yeah, my honorable mention was not a person, but a place, and that was Valhalla, because it seems like all the Valkyries do is win at home. So the fans, the energy in Chase Center, that has been a huge one because we saw it in the month of June, right? They had all those home games and they won every one of them, but like the one against the Liberty and the one against the Lynx. Yeah. When they're at home, they win games. And we saw it on the road, right? 1 in 3. They just have to find ways to win on the road. But when they're at home, they're really hard to beat. Like that's why they play tonight against Phoenix. And they're like a 1.5 point underdog against probably the second or third best team in the WNBA because of the advantage that Valhalla gives them at home. All right, when we come back from our next ad break, we're going to do some team superlatives. What's been the best win? What's been the biggest surprise? And can this team make the playoffs? But first, summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotion and fun ways to bet. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Alrighty, and we're back here with Locked On Valkyries Report. We're going to go now to our team superlatives. Number 1, and I'm going to take this one, the most impressive win. And I went back and forth between 2 games, but I'm going to take the Valkyries' home win in June against the Las Vegas Aces. They dominated the Aces from the jump. The team that was an emotional game, right? 2 returning players, Tiffany Hayes, Kate Martin, and Natalie Nakase, all involved with that franchise last year. The team that has won 2 of the last 3 championships, has the reigning MVP. The Valkyries made the Aces look not good. They made them look bad in that game in June at home. And I think, I thought about a couple of other games, but that game was in my mind the most impressive performance the Valkyries have put on this entire season from start to finish, full 40 minutes. Nakase talks about putting together 40 minutes. I think that's one of the few times they put together 40 full minutes from start to finish to dominate a game, was that home win against Las Vegas back in June.
I went back and forth too, and that ended up my honorable mention. I'm going to go with the home win over Indiana just because I thought it was so impressive how they adjusted in game. Like they were clearly guarding Caitlin very well, but Aaliyah Boston was going off on them in that first half. And in the second half, they really adjusted and were protecting the paint, and they ended up pulling out an 11-point win. A lot of teams, Indiana hasn't been great on the road, but that's a team that that's a game where I feel like the Valkyries said, okay, our defense is for real. And the league had to look at it and be like, okay, this is a lockdown defense. It's not just like a blip. It's not a team that showing different looks. It's not just like the zone defense and trying to figure out like what looks are they going to give us. Like they can just lock down when they have to. That's a game that sold me on like, okay, this could be a top defense in the league.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think my honorable mention game was actually the one they just had on the road at the Fever, because we haven't seen them win consistently on the road. Yep. And that was a pretty dominant win against, again, I know it was Caitlin Clark's first game back, but the Fever, even without her, had been playing well. Kelsey Mitchell playing well, Aaliyah Boston playing well. So that was an impressive one that they just had. And again, shows that they can win outside the state of California, because that was their first win outside of what?
At least one time.
At least one time they were able to win outside the great state of California. All righty. The biggest surprise about the Valkyries so far for you, Marisa, has been what?
I think that the defense is actually good. Like, not to just like keep harping on the same thing, but like even before the expansion draft, Natalie and Ohema talked so much about we're going to hang our hats on defense. And like, that's such a great thing to say. But how is that actually going to look? And early on, again, we saw a few times like they throw a zone at people. They showed these different looks. I talked to Kate Martin about it a lot early in the season of like how fun it is to like confuse teams. But at some point, like they're going to figure you out. And let's ignore that one Las Vegas game. They've shut down teams almost every game. Even games they've lost, it hasn't been because of their defense. It's been because their shots have gone cold or they're just turning the ball over. But I've been so impressed that they've actually like stuck with it and they've been able to actually do it, especially with a bunch of players that haven't been asked to do as much as they're doing. Like KT, Veronica, Temi were all very good defenders last year, but in very specific roles. Now they're being asked to do it against the top players every single night, and they are doing it. We'll see how that works in the second half, but I've just been impressed that that's been a legit thing. Like Natalie talks about being the number 1 defensive rating team in the league, and that's a real possibility. Like they're number 2, I think, right now, or they were going into the Vegas game at least. I've just been genuinely impressed that it wasn't just talk, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that was my answer too. But to my point, it's the consistency of the defense. No matter who's in the game, no matter if it's the people who were gone for Eurobasket, if it's at any point, the defense has consistently been one of the best. They've done a phenomenal job on star players game after game after game, especially post players. You talked about it. There's been a couple of times, but for the most part, other teams' post players have not scored amazingly against the Valkyries. So it's, to me, it's just the consistency of the defense that has been the most impressive thing about this team and probably the biggest surprise, like we talked about. Next one, the biggest question heading into the second half of the season for you. For me, it's can they be a more consistent team offensively, especially in the half court? And we've talked about it. When they're not in transition, their half court offense can be hit or miss so much off of can they make their shots? It's a very basic question. Can in the half court, can you make your shots? Can you not get stagnant? Can you move the ball? Can you make the right reads that Natalie talks about every time? I mean, the word reads comes out of her mouth at least once a sentence when talking about offense, if not twice. And so can they get the right reads made? Can they find their shots? Can they knock down their shots? And can they consistently be an offensive team that can score and win games because they were able to score when sometimes that defense that's elite is going to let you down every now and then? Or when you do have an elite defensive game, can you put enough points to win a game and not be letting your defense down by not scoring on offense?
Yeah, mine is just can they close out games late, especially on the road, and especially just like not self-imploding, because some of these losses have been no, it hasn't just been shots not landing. It's been like throwing the ball away. It's been 5-second violations, inbounding the ball. It's been just like these late game mistakes. That's something they need to clean up. It's these traveling calls, which I know Natalie doesn't like from the officiating standpoint, but sometimes they are traveling. I would just like to see them lock in late in games, especially on the road. I think they have the ability to do that. So I think the big question is, can they and will they?
Gotcha. And then, I would agree. I think we saw it a couple times. We saw that one in Atlanta, right, where they had that fourth quarter lead. I think it happened in Phoenix too on the road. Yep. They had a fourth quarter lead that they blew. So can they hold it down? They almost did it at home against Seattle. They had a big lead and Seattle closed that game close, but those are the games they got to win. And that is into my last question for you, Marisa. Are the Valkyries a playoff team?
I think so, mostly because there are so many bad teams this year. It's going to be interesting to see, does Vegas turn things around in the second half? Does Indiana kind of lock down? Is Washington for real? I'm starting to kind of believe in them more and more. It's interesting because I feel like anything short of a playoff appearance for the Valkyries is a disappointment now. So it's playoffs or bust, which is not the position I thought we would be in right now. They have it in them. They don't play the Liberty, or they play Liberty only one more time. They play Minnesota only 2 more times. They have some winnable games coming up. Like they kind of control their destiny. And as long as they kind of lock down and can win on the road a little bit and can win late in games and their offense kind of regresses to the mean a little bit more, like, yeah, I think they are a playoff team, or they should be.
And I would agree with you. And my caveat that I put into mine was yes, but they need to win games on the road. It's a simple answer. They're going to win games at home in Chase Center. It's clearly a huge advantage for them, almost probably the best advantage in the entire WNBA. But can you go on the road and win not only the games that you have to win, the ones against the teams that are at the bottom of the league, but can you steal games against that middle pack like the Washingtons and the Vegas Aces and the Indianas and the teams that you talk about that are sort of on the fence, on that cusp with you? Can you win those games? Can you beat Seattle on the road? Teams like that, those teams that are in your area, those are the games that they're going to have to win on the road that are going to signify whether they are going to be a playoff team or not. That is all we have for today. Marisa, thank you so much for joining me. Let the nice folks know where they can find all your amazing coverage of not only the Valkyries, but women's sports in general in the Bay Area.
Yeah, subscribe to San Francisco Chronicle. I'm at every Valkyries game, home and road. Also cover Bay FC, Stanford Cal women's basketball, anything in women's sports, and follow me on Bluesky at Marisa Ingemi.
You can follow me, Matthew Walter, on Bluesky at Matthew-Walter96. And you can find my coverage of the Valkyries along with all of my amazing colleagues who cover the entire world of women's basketball over at thenexthoops.com. Thank you so much for tuning into this first ever episode of Valkyries Report, a specialty podcast of Locked On Women's Basketball. And thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the 2025 Locked On NBA podcast. Locked On NBA is a show about the NBA every single day, part of our Locked On podcast network.